Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to Overwatch Central. So I want to talk about maps a little bit. BlizzCon is just around the corner and no doubt we will have an announcement of sorts of a new map or some sort of things that are going on into the game. Of course we'll have our new hero, which will be one of the main things that we'll probably see at BlizzCon. It's hard to say for sure, but if we're going off what has happened the last 2 years, new heroes have been announced, new maps have also been playable as well. So there is a good chance that we will see a new map at BlizzCon at least, but what kind of map can we expect? And also now we've had a good amount of time to play Junkertown since Gamescom, but the reaction that we've seen from a lot of players is they aren't necessarily sure what they think of it. It's not a terrible map, sure, but it kind of falls into the same sort of category that Eichenwald, Oasis and Horizon have also fall into, which we'll go over in a second. But all of these maps that we've just gone over all came out after launch and have been significantly different to how the other maps have been in the game. But let's have a bit of a history lesson. When Overwatch was revealed, it was King's Row, Temple of Anubis and Hanamura that were all revealed in the game. Gibraltar, Numbani and Volskaya added a little bit later on, but still in the closed alpha of the game. Dorado was revealed just before the closed beta started. Hollywood was added in at BlizzCon 2015, Nepal and Lijiang were added after the Christmas break, and Ilios and Route 66 were added between the closed beta starting back up in 2016 and the game being launched. So let's start with one of the oldest maps, but also one of the favoured ones with King's Row. Whether you really like it or not yourself, you can agree that it's one of the firm favourites across the community, especially the pros. So why is it such a firm favourite? And what has it got that maps like Junkertown or Eichenwald don't? And the answer is fairly straightforward when you think about it. King's Row is an incredibly flat map, and it also has quite a few choke points to fight in. Well, why is this popular? Well, because of how the game mode works and how King's Row is as a map, it makes a lot of heroes viable and the strategies become much more dynamic. Before we use it to compare with King's Row, let's go over another map in a different game mode, Chateau Gillard. One of the favourite deathmatch maps in the game. Well, it's the only one really, but you get the point. The reason why it's such a good map is because there's lots of interesting points of the map that make certain strategies work. If you play Pharah and you want to play Pharah, then that's great, you can do on Chateau. You could just stay outside, really command the open areas outside and flank around, but you obviously don't want to be in areas such as below the point where you tend to see a lot of Symmetras. Speaking of Symmetra, she can also be viable. She skulks around the basement, killing off anybody that tries to go for the health packs, and really, again, commands a certain area that fits her strategy and her viability. There aren't really any heroes that don't work on Chateau, but if you say take it to an outside point on Hollywood's deathmatch area, it's very open, meaning that Pharah is very strong, and heroes like Symmetra don't really have anywhere to hide and to do a lot of damage, so they're just not as good. And it's a very similar thing to how King's Row works in, say, comparison Junkertown. You could play the likes of Winston, D.Va as your main tanks on King's Row as a dive formation composition, that's fine. But you can also play the likes of Reinhardt, Reaper, Zarya, Roadhog, all of these heroes that don't really have the same kind of dive mobility that the dive heroes do. They still work. All of the strategies within Overwatch do work in King's Row, and it's just a very evenly based map. It kind of reminds me of some of the Smash Brothers Melee maps that you see in esports. There's a little bit of variation with where certain platforms are put, sure, but the very flat maps are very evenly matched, and regardless of attack and defense, you still have good opportunities to engage on either side. Whereas comparing this to Junkertown First Point, for example, it's very open. Heroes like Reaper can't really do much, Zarya and Reinhardt can also be caught out in the open, and it kind of requires you to play dive in a certain way. There's also another thing that I briefly mentioned before, and it has to do with choke points. King's Row has a lot of choke points where you can engage and fight the enemy team, certainly around the corners of streets, for example. You have the main choke point as you're attacking the first point as well, but there are options to flank and to just break through. You have the statue in the way that means that you can't just put a cheese comp there, blow it down. Whereas you compare that to Eichenwald, which for a long time only had the one choke to break through, and even then it's still horrible to do. Oasis doesn't have all that many choke points as well, at least not in a way that you can play the likes of Reinhardt and Zarya into it, unless you're playing on the university stage. Horizon doesn't really have any chokes, which requires the team to cheese comp it onto the point and actually use the point as a choke itself. And Junkertown is just very open, and whilst these maps are varied and interesting in their own way, they still don't really capture the essence of what King's Row really did. The newest maps do require dive teams, high mobility and movement, as they don't really have chokes to fight in, and there's a lot of vertical space that they can climb, and a lot of open space as well, meaning that they need to be quick, otherwise they'll get caught out. This is another reason why dive got very popular at the start of this year. But chokes aren't inherently bad, King's Row has loads, but it is really important to have those other flanks available. The reason why I wanted to put an emphasis on King's Row is, unless BlizzCon brings a new form of competitive game mode, which I'll go over in a second, the new map most likely will be another hybrid map. We started off with hybrid with Eichenwald, had a control map with Oasis, 2 capture point with Horizon, and a pure payload one with Junkertown as well, meaning that we're coming right back around to another hybrid map. So I would very much like to see it in the likes of King's Row, with how flat and open it is, lots of different flags that you can use, and less of a massive horrible choke with Eichenwald, but then also being incredibly open like the second point. If it could be more like the third point, I think that would be good, but that's just my opinion. I'm sure people will disagree with that entirely. But yeah, part of me does think that we're going to see a new competitive game mode revealed at BlizzCon. As I said, over the Christmas break of 2015 to 16 is when we had the Control game mode added, and that is the latest game mode that we've had in Ranked at least, meaning that it's almost been 2 years since a new competitive game mode has been put into the game. And I think it's about time that we saw something else. My tinfoil theory to do with talking about whether there'd be a new game mode or not is that Contenders and all of the other Overwatch stuff have been playing games in a best of 4 with each of the game modes: Hybrid, Control, Assault, so 2 capture point, and also Pure Payload as well. 4 game modes, 4 rounds, and the teams have to pick between the maps that are in there. So I was thinking before the Overwatch League they might want to make it a best of 5, so that might be something that they'd go in. What this game mode could be, I have no idea. Like a tug of war payload game might be quite interesting, or multiple point capture areas like you see in the likes of Team Fortress 2. There are a lot of problems with these game modes in Overwatch, much like we've seen with Capture the Rooster and Capture the Flag game modes, but I'm sure that Blizzard will find a really engaging and dynamic way to play the game. And I think it will also increase the way that people want to play ranked, because there's a new way to play the game and a new way to learn it as well. But that's what I want to see, but I really did want to highlight why I think King's Row is such a strong map, also why the maps that have been added into the game since launch just haven't felt as strong or as good as previous maps in the game. But thank you very much for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you think, and until next time, take care. We'll see you then.